So welcome to the Global Network webinars. My name is Alexander Loschke, and I will be moderating this webinar today together with my colleagues Yushi Sang and Sean Lovell. We are very happy to have with us today Vibeke Nielsen from the UN Statistics Division, Karen Bett from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, Omurbek Ibraev from the National Statistical Committee of the Kyrgyz Republic, and Federico Segui from the National Statistical Institute of Uruguay. Our speakers will be talking about the collaborative on use of administrative data for statistics. Administrative data collected by governments and service providers in the course of their day-to-day business is an increasingly important source for the production of official statistics. There's an urgent need to strengthen the capacity of national statistical systems to leverage the use of administrative data for statistical purposes, to fill data gaps which exist, to monitor progress and implement the 2030 agenda, and to address emerging challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Responding to this need, the UN Statistics Division and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data have jointly convened a multi-stakeholder collaborative of countries and regional and international agencies aimed to strengthen the capacity of countries to use administrative data sources for statistical purposes. During our Global Network webinar today, our speakers will talk about the work of the collaborative on admin data, and they will present some examples of ongoing work. Before I now introduce our first speaker, let me first address a couple of practical things. We will first hear all interventions by our speakers and will then have a Q&A session at the end. Please feel free to write your comments and questions into the meeting chat at any time. And then during the Q&A session, please ask the question yourself, or if you wish, we can also ask the question for you. Just let us know. As always, this Global Network webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Global Network of Data Officers and Statisticians at yammer.com/UNstats. We invite you to continue the discussions on the Global Network after the webinar, and I would like to take this opportunity also to point out already that on the Global Network, we have a dedicated group on administrative data. So let me now introduce our first speaker, who will then later on introduce the other speakers. Vibeke is an interregional advisor on statistical training and capacity building at the UN Statistics Division. She currently coordinates the work of the collaborative on administrative data on UNSD's side, along with a number of other projects and initiatives that focus on capacity development and training related to SDG implementation. So let me now hand over to you, Vibeke. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Alex, and very nice to be here. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone who's joined us. We're very pleased that we have this opportunity now to present the work of the collaborative. So thanks so much to the organizers for having us. The collaborative was established now a bit more than a year ago, as Alex was also saying, in response to needs of countries to focus more on use of administrative data, to look at this as a topic in itself and not just an element of a specific thematic area. So we're really looking at this across thematic areas to try and find commonalities, find ways of working together. I have a brief presentation that I'll just start sharing now that will give you a bit more of a background and context. So here I've just copied some of the main elements from our project website. We can put it in the chat in the part of this discussion so that you also can visit the website to learn more. It was established jointly by Statistics Division of the ESA and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, and we quickly had a lot of members from national statistics offices, but also from international and regional organizations. And the collaborative is open to everyone who wants to join. And the objective, as has been said already also, is to jointly focus on how to use administrative data for statistical purposes more efficiently, looking at better access, better communication with administrative data owners, quality issues, legal frameworks, all these different elements that come together and that are needed to increase the use of administrative data. Those of you who are familiar also with the Statistics Division know that we have a lot of expert groups, and many of those are quite formal, working on recommendations. But this group is meant to be a much more practically oriented group that focuses on experience exchange and learning. So while we, of course, also look at how we can provide guidance and recommendations, all of it is very practically oriented, and the work is to a large extent led by the countries that are members, who help us find the direction and prioritize what is most needed for the participating countries, and then also more generally to be able to increase the use of administrative data sources for statistics production, to be more sustainable, to have other opportunities and other options for data collection that has maybe been the traditional approach in many countries, especially using surveys and censuses. So I've already touched to some extent upon it. There are three main angles to the approach of work. We are working cross-cuttingly, which I think is a key element of this. But we also look at specific sectoral elements. Karen will come back to the expert clinics that we have established later. They will sometimes be thematical, for instance. In some cases, we also have very specific sectoral or thematical discussions if that is needed. But overall, the cross-cutting is maybe the key element. But then we also look at different level of system development. It's not maybe the core element of the work either, but as we have members that are at different stages of development when it comes to using administrative data sources, we of course try to cater the different levels of development as well. So that is an aspect of the work. We have developed guiding principles that can help identify and inform everyone who's not familiar with the collaborative, what approach we are taking, how we organize ourselves, and which outcomes we're striving for. And as you may see from this slide, we do focus a lot on the practical work, as I was saying. We're open to new memberships, and we try to focus on filling the gaps of things that are not already available. So a key element of the work in the beginning was also to try and identify what is already available and what is missing. But of course, we don't have the full overview, so we are happy to receive additional input from anyone who wants to share. The work of the group is to a large extent split into three task teams. It's institutional framework coordination and partnership, it's data management and standardization, and it's technical interoperability and linking. And the members of the collaborative are coordinated and participating in these different task teams, discussing practical elements related to it, development of materials as well as needed, and yeah, basically just practical experience exchange and learning. And that is also what we are currently focusing on, more development of tools, practical level discussions, learning from each other. And what I actually would like to, let me go quickly back to the slide. One of the reasons why we are having this webinar today, as Karen will come more into detail on in her presentation towards the end, is that, as Alex was saying, we have also established this subgroup on the Yammer network that would be a space for discussing the use of administrative data specifically. And that is also coming as a response to requests from members to have an informal channel to exchange, discuss informally, and yeah, basically just hear what others are doing, being able to ask a quick question if something is unclear, and then maybe another member would come back, as is the idea of the Yammer network as well, to some extent. So we hope that you will join us in that group, and as I said, Karen will come back with more information later in this webinar. I talked about us sharing or collecting materials. One of the key elements of this is the inventory of resources that we've put together. It does now contain a lot of guidelines, tools, and other resources that have been collected and shared by different members of the collaborative. In addition, we have put up more than 25 case studies from countries that cover all kinds of different elements of work. We'll hear from Omurbek and Federico later, sharing some of the examples that they have also made available on the inventory. But here are also some other examples. Cameroon, for instance, has a piece on improving data from administrative sources. They have a very interesting and good collaboration ongoing with their administrative data owners. We have here also examples from Bhutan and Chile, and you will find more on the web pages that are also linked on the slide. And if you look in the link that UC shared, you will also find it there. That's everything from me. Let me stop sharing my screen. And I would just give me a second for stop sharing. I see you mentioned it to me. Give me a second. For some reason, this has never been a problem before. Let me, in any case, start. Go ahead, Alex.
No, what I can try to do is to share my screen and then.
Now I found the button. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No problem. Sorry, everyone. No. So I would like to introduce the next speaker, which is Omurbek Ibraev. He's currently a project manager for the World Bank, working closely with the National Statistical Committee of the Kyrgyz Republic, implementing a capacity development project. He has been working for and with the National Statistical Committee of the Kyrgyz Republic for almost 20 years in various roles and working on a number of different initiatives. And he knows very well all the work ongoing on statistics in Kyrgyzstan. So please share with us some of the work that you have been engaged in Kyrgyzstan on the use of administrative data. Over to you, Omurbek.
Thank you, Vibeke. Hello, everyone. Just to let you know that I am also one of the co-leads of the task team 1 of the collaborative for the use of administrative data. So I would like to share the experience of the Kyrgyz Republic regarding the process of promoting and advocating the new legislation and how this new statistical law turned into the so-called advocacy and awareness campaign for the use of administrative data for the statistical purposes. So the National Statistical Office of Kyrgyzstan launched a project in 2017 under the support of United Nations Statistics Division and the World Bank project. So the key goal of the project was to modernize the old law on state statistics and bring it in line with the UN fundamental principles on official statistics, and most importantly, bring it in line with also the UNSD generic law on official statistics. So as a result of the project, the National Statistical Office adopted a new law, which is to the maximum extent is in line with the UN fundamental principles on official statistics and United Nations generic law on official statistics. And the law was signed and became effective in 2020. So the primary objective of the new law is to set up a new national statistical system. So it means the law is about establishing a completely new legal framework, and the National Statistical Office would be playing a key role in terms of coordination of the production, development and dissemination of official statistics within the national statistical system. So the old law was mainly about the National Statistical Office. So the new law covers not only the National Statistical Office, but the entire national statistical system. Another difference of the new law from the old one is that the National Statistical Office will have the opportunity to gain access to the unit-level administrative data. Another difference of the new law is that the new law also specifically defines basic concepts of official statistics and principles of official statistics, and the new law also has specific provisions on the matter of protection of data confidentiality. So I would like to share our experience on how the NSO promoted the new law among the key stakeholders. So after the National Statistical Office came up with the first draft of the new law with the help of United Nations Statistics Division and the World Bank. So the NSO chose a strategy of engaging as many engaging and involving as many stakeholders as possible: business community, ministries and agencies, civil society. So the NSO organized many focus groups, roundtables, workshops to discuss the new draft of the law. But most importantly, NSC set up some direct connection with several prominent parliamentarians to present the new law, highlights its importance and possible benefits the new law will bring in terms of improving the production of official statistics and overall improving the overall efficiency of public services. So this strategy was quite successful, getting the parliament on board and discussing and deliberating the new law with the members of the parliament. So in the course of promotion of the new law, the National Statistical Office have also chosen another strategy, which is making some links with the ongoing efforts of the government, efforts on e-governance, data exchange, increasing the efficiency of public services, and reduction of burden on citizens. So the NSO made it clear to the government that the new law will make a great contribution in making the production of official statistics more effective and efficient. Another group of stakeholders that the NSO worked really closely as the representatives of the business community. So the representatives of the business community have been always criticizing the NSO that it is posing an excessive burden on respondents. So the NSO also made a clear strategy to work with the representatives of the business community to highlight the importance of the new legislation in terms of reducing the burden on respondents, so making it clear that the NSO is going to use administrative data and to the maximum extent combine use of administrative data with traditional business surveys. So the representatives of the business community welcomed very much the new initiative, and the NSO has received great support from them. So use of administrative data and the new law. So there are specific provisions in the new law. For example, I would like to mention some of them. The law clearly states that the national and local authorities are obliged to provide data and metadata in their possession at the level of details necessary for the production of official statistics, including the unit level data. And another important provision in the law is that the providers of administrative data shall be obliged to also consult the content of the data that they collect with the NSO. And NSO has also taken the responsibility of making sure that the data are used exclusively for statistical purposes. And the NSO has also taken the responsibility to ensure data confidentiality and data protection. So I would like to also specify that the new law has been signed by the president and has become effective in 2020. But as for the next steps forward, now the NSO has confronted with the challenge of implementing the new law. So still a lot to be done. So the NSO will have to come up with some new specific bylaws and regulations to start sharing the data with administrative data providers. NSO would also have to strengthen its coordinating role and make sure that other producers of official statistics should also work in line with the provisions of the new law. And one of the other challenges for the NSO is to start gaining access to the administrative data and ensure data security and confidentiality. And of course, the NSO should also work really hard to build capacity in using administrative data for statistical purposes. So I would like to now speak about the strategies. If the NSOs are going to modernize their existing statistical laws, so the National Statistical Office of Kyrgyzstan could propose some strategies. First of all, number one is to use a reliable and globally recognized framework for the modernization of the statistical legislation. In our case, we decided to use the UNSD generic law on official statistics. So the fact that the many stakeholders also supported the new law was also related to this. That if this law is in line with the UNSD guidelines, then it is definitely a good product. Another strategy is to engage as many stakeholders as possible and highlight the link between the new legislation and some ongoing efforts on e-governance, data exchange. Another important strategy is to stress the importance of the new legislation in terms of meeting demands and expectations of relevant parties. For example, business community, national authorities, civil society, users, and respondents. And last thing I would also like to stress is that it is also important to get on board some prominent politicians, especially the parliamentarians, and explain to the parliamentarians the importance of the new legislation and explain the benefits the new legislation would bring to the NSO and to the entire society, to make sure that production of official statistics is done in an efficient and effective way. So this is it. This is the end of my speech. So if you have any further questions, I will be more than delighted to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Omurbek, for sharing the experience from Kyrgyzstan. I think what you have been doing is really interesting and very relevant for many other countries. As we know, many are currently looking through their legal frameworks and bylaws and other supporting elements to be able to access administrative data sources to a larger extent. So thank you also very much for the recommendations to others. Our next speaker is the Deputy Director General of the National Statistical Institute of Uruguay. He is also responsible for the implementation of the data warehouse and the integrated system of statistical registers and surveys at the Statistics Office. He's also been a consultant for various international agencies and some of those consultancies have also been related to use of administrative data. Mr. Federico Segui is also a co-lead of Task Team 3 of the collaborative, and will be speaking more to the work that is related to that task team. Over to you, Federico.
Thank you, Vibeke. I will share my screen. I think you can see it. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here in this webinar. I will tell you the experiences of Uruguay related to the collaborative. We call it the Task Team 3, as Vibeke mentioned, on technical interoperability and linking. We presented our experience on interoperability during a webinar organized by the collaborative last year. Also this year, during an expert clinic, we presented the experimental labor statistics based on administrative registers that we are producing. The NSI has collaborated with the inventory of resources on the use of administrative data for statistical purposes, providing information on 3 topics: the implementation of an integrated system of statistical registers and surveys at the NSI, the register-based census of agriculture, and a tool to conduct rapid quality assessment of administrative registers for statistical purposes. In this presentation, I will briefly talk about an integrated system of statistical registers and surveys called SIRE that we have implemented at the NSI, in particularly the Geostatistical Data Warehouse, which is the database that supports this system. I will also mention something about the model called GSR-BPM, adapted from the original GS-BPM model for the production of statistics based on administrative registers. And finally, I will tell you a couple of things about the register-based census of agriculture, if I have time. Let's see, what is the SIDE, the Integrated System of Statistical Registers and Surveys? It is not just a central database and information system. It is a system in the broader sense of the term, formed by a set of interrelated elements that works as a whole. The SIDE system is based on a series of key elements which may not be the most visible. Perhaps the most visible part of the system is the data warehouse. That is why the system is represented here with an iceberg. Below or behind the data warehouse are some key elements. Master data and metadata management is the DNA of the system. In that sense, we developed a software tool called Master Data, which is based on the ISO 11179 standard. Also, the GSR-BPM adapted from the original model GS-BPM, as I mentioned before. And the conceptual and methodological framework of the SIDE. I'm not sure. I think I don't have enough time to talk about all of these things, but I will tell you some key points of them. The SIDE is an integrated system of statistical registers, but also census and surveys. It is based on the model of the Scandinavian countries, which is made up of 3 base registers. The conceptual and methodological framework of the SIDE is based on the methodology of Anders and Britt Walgren, which has been widely disseminated in the Latin America region, but is also an adaptation of a conceptual and methodological framework developed for the countries of the Andean community, where I had the opportunity to work as a consultant, and I developed the conceptual framework, and now we have adopted and adapted it to our country. Here we have the architecture of the data warehouse, which is made up of 4 layers. The first one is the data input, where we have a single input channel for the data on the left. And we can visualize it as a funnel where we receive the administrative data in different formats, from plain text files to web services in the cloud through the government's interoperability platform. The second layer is the data transformation and integration layer. Then the layer of centralized updating and aggregation in the data warehouse, and another for the data analysis and presentation. In other words, it is not only architecture on the information technology side, but also in how we organize it, the whole process. Well, here we have the model that has been adapted from the original GSBPM model from UNSD, which we have called GSRBPM. The original model was very focused on what is the production of statistics in a traditional way, and thinking about producing some specific statistics. So that was not fully fit to what is the management and maintenance of an integrated system of statistical registers, where the objective is not to generate a particular data or statistics, but to improve the coverage and quality of the system in general, integrating different data sources. That is why we have modified specifically the transformation and integration or linking phases. These are new phases that are not part of the original model, and some sub-processes within the other phases have also been adapted to the management and maintenance of an integrated system of statistical registers. Other case study we included into the inventory is a register-based census of agriculture, or combined census. It will combine administrative data and data from questionnaires collected during the field work. It is conducted by the Ministry of Agriculture with technical assistance from the National Statistical Institute. Before taking my current position as Deputy Director General, I assisted the Ministry on the design and implementation of the data warehouse for the next census. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for sharing this experience, Federico. It clearly showcases another part of the work of the collaborative that is much more focused on the technical implementation and the kind of the backend that needs to be in place also to be able to handle the data and to organize them in a structured way. So thanks so much for sharing this example. And Karen has also shared in the chat the links to the case study in case people also want to check in more. I'll hand over to our last speaker, Karen Bett. She is the policy manager for the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data and the key partner in the collaborative representing GPSTD in it. Overall, she's advancing GPSTD's policy work on inclusion and equity and strengthened of foundations of foundational data systems. She's also involved in a lot of other work and has spent over 10 years working in international development in various initiatives with maybe a main focus of work in Africa. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Vibeke, and I'm very happy to be here and to be talking about the collaborative to colleagues in the global network. So I won't have a slide presentation. I'll just talk about 3 things: the expert clinics that we've been running, how we do it, and the ones we've done, and also invite you, to join us. And then I'll talk about the Yama group that we've established. And then I have a small activity which will hopefully be fun to be part of. So the expert clinic really is a model where we allow countries and the organizations that are part of the collaborative to learn from one another. As the word describes, a clinic is where you bring your problems and you get a diagnosis and you get a prescription. But we're trying to animate that by allowing countries and our partners to, share with us issues they may want to learn, issues on administrative data that they may want to learn from other countries or other institutions, and then suggest if there are specific countries or specific institutions they want to hear from on the issue. We also, as the Secretariat, suggest institutions that are likely to have expert knowledge on the issue that has been presented to us. With that set, we now facilitate a meeting where we have this small group of people talking to one another around the problem or the topic. And then we try to measure the knowledge that has been gained from these expert clinics by following up with the country that initiated the request and seeing how they've used the skills. Often the request comes from ongoing activities that are within the NSO and things that they're implementing and they want to learn from other countries. The value of this expert clinic model is really that it allows small groups and allows small conversations that are very topical, but also allows us to record some of these sessions and make them available for others who may not have joined the expert clinic to learn from. And this is initiated by the countries or the institutions that are part of the collaborative. So really, we try to make sure that we meet your needs and organize this to respond to day-to-day challenges that you may be facing. So far, since the start of the collaborative, we've hosted 2 expert clinics, and the third one is in the works. The first one was on labor statistics, and this was initiated by Namibia Statistics Authority. And we invited the International Labour Organization, Statistics Denmark, Statistics Norway, Colombia, Dane, and Uruguay to share their experience for Namibia to learn. Namibia came with a couple of questions that they had in mind, and they also brought along the administrative data owners, so the Ministry of Labour, to join them in that expert clinic. The second one we hosted about a week ago was on data quality. This was initiated by Colombia, and we had participation from Statistics Norway, Statistics Canada, Cameroon, and Slovenia. Again, the model was the same. Colombia had a set of about 3 to 4 questions they wanted to learn from these countries, and the presentations made by the countries were to respond to those questions. I must say that the expert clinics, we divide them into two main sessions or 2 main parts. So the first part is the formal part where we get the countries to make very short presentations and explain their approach and how they've tackled the questions and the challenge, and that is what is recorded. The second part is more of an informal session where the country asks more questions, digs into the issues, and it's a more relaxed environment to ask questions without feeling that you're under the scrutiny of a web camera. So we make sure that all these videos are available on our collaborative page. We have the videos on the Labor Stats app, and we should be loading the videos on the data quality expert clinic shortly. The third one, and I'll mention it very briefly, that we're organizing towards the end of November is on technical interoperability and linking, and this has been initiated by Uruguay. So we're reaching out to some countries who can share their knowledge and their experience on technical interoperability and linking with Uruguay. I'll shortly put the link to the expert clinic videos on the chat, but I'll swiftly move to the Yama group. This is, as was mentioned at the intro, it's our space to interact more informally with the network and also reach statisticians and data officers beyond those who are part of the collaborative. So it's our space to have informal conversations. We launched it very recently. I think it's the youngest subgroup in the Yama group on the Yama page. So we launched it at the World Data Forum in 2021. And this is obviously extending an invitation to all of you to join us on the Yama group, subgroup on the admin data collaborative. And I'll also put the link to that group on the chat. Lastly, I just want to launch a poll. I've actually launched this, and I'd like us to participate. If you go to the Yama group, and I'll just put the link here. If you go to the Yama page, there's a link which takes you to a short poll that we want to hear from you. You know, what are some of the main challenges you face when handling administrative records? So the poll is, you know, you vote. We have 5 options. Please vote. Your vote matters as well as your voice, but we're keen to also interact with you on that. So I look forward to seeing the findings of that poll, and that is the end of my presentation, and back to you, Vibeke.
Thank you so much, Karen. We'll give everyone a little bit of time to try and share some thoughts on the poll, and maybe we at the end of this webinar can have a quick check-in on how we're doing and what is important to people. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, so maybe the only thing I can respond to that has come up is that we've had a proposal for a case study for Jordan, and we would very much like to have more information from representatives from other countries. Also, if you have materials that you see are not in the inventory, other types of materials that could be relevant, don't hesitate to share them with us. You can share them on the Yammer subgroup, for instance. That's a good channel for sharing, also for others to learn about right away. So please don't be shy. And yeah, Alex, maybe have you received any questions, or do you know if there's anyone who maybe has questions to us?
Thank you, Vibeke. I have just switched on the possibility for participants to switch on their mic and also the camera if they wish, and to ask questions. So far, I haven't seen yet any question in the chat, but I would like maybe to ask one question to the participants today. I guess one of the main challenges, or two of the main challenges of the use of administrative data for statistics, official statistics, is first of all to get the legal basis right, basically to have a statistical law or other laws that establish the requirement for official entities or government entities to share the data with a statistical office. But then you still have the challenge basically that you need to have a memorandum of understanding between that entity that produces this administrative data for their own purposes, and then to basically to convince them to share that data and maybe also have modifications to the data that so it makes it easier to integrate it with the official statistics or for the use of official statistics. So maybe you can say a little bit more about maybe the steps or useful steps that are needed to establish such a cooperation and also to reach a memorandum of understanding with those entities providing the administrative data.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's interesting that you're asking just this question because that's one of the topics that we're currently working on in the collaborative. We have a consultant supporting us in developing practical level guidelines on how to also put together MOUs, because it's not always feasible in countries to actually implement legal frameworks or to renew them. And in that case, practical level MOUs between administrative data owners and the statistics office is a more practical hands-on approach. So as I said, we're currently putting together some very hands-on guidelines and a template that we hope will be helpful in the context. But I think I'll also quickly hand over to both Omurbek and Federico to share some of their thoughts and experiences from their countries.
So I can start, Vibeke, if it's okay with you. So of course, having a good and reliable legal framework is of utmost importance. And as I mentioned in my presentation, so instead of inventing a bicycle, so you could also use a reliable legal framework. And taking this opportunity, I would like to express our gratitude to the United Nations, especially to UNSD for proposing this generic law on official statistics. And the generic law on official statistics has very good provisions on the use of administrative data. So the legal framework, the generic law, which has already been offered by the United Nations, could serve as a very good starting point for modernizing the existing legal framework. And it is also important here to stress that the national statistical offices should do their best in terms of making their existing legal frameworks to the maximum extent in line with the United Nations generic law, because when the generic law was drafted, so as far as I know, many bright international consultants on legal issues, on statistical production, they work together. So they have gone through all these processes. So having a good, reliable framework is one thing. And of course, you also mentioned that MOUs are also important. And I would like to add some more few things to what has been mentioned by Vibeke. So it would be also good to provide some information about what the providers of administrative data would get in turn from the national statistical offices. And it could clearly be highlighted in the MOUs, so that it is not only us statisticians getting access to the administrative data, but we should also mention something about giving something back to the administrative data providers. For example, providing some data lifecycle support. I mean, the ministries and agencies, they don't have specific competence when it comes to data collection, data processing, and stuff like that. And the NSOs have this competence. So we could also provide this kind of services to the admin data providers to provide some incentives for those who are willing to share their data with the national statistical offices. This is it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Omurbek. Over to you, Federico.
Thank you, Vibeke. I agree with Omurbek. I think that we need to build some kind of win-to-win strategies with our data providers. I think that we need to update our legal framework, but it's not enough. We need this kind of MOUs to establish this kind of data sharing and also something to provide them back for their data. I completely agree with what Omurbek said. So that's my thoughts.
Thanks so much, and I also see a very interesting comment in the chat from, I think it's from Jordan, about also doing a network analysis to get an overview of the data sources that are there, and kind of having coordination and practical level meetings just to communicate, right? I think that is often, as Omurbek was also saying, the communication has often been lacking, and creating mutual understanding is key also, I think, at the practical level. Sorry, Alex.
No, exactly. I wanted to point out exactly to the same thing, so to this comment. So yeah, I guess building partnerships with the data providers is really a very important part. Federico, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I forgot to mention it, that recently we created just a dashboard, you know, to our data providers. When they can see the assured time of the data that they provided to us. And also we provide them a quality report of the data. So we have some real examples of this kind of things that we can share with our data providers. It could be simple ones.
Yeah, thank you. Then I see a question by Mitali Sen. Mitali, I'm not sure if you want to come in, or otherwise I can just read it out. So there was a concrete question to our colleague from Kyrgyzstan. So how long did it take Kyrgyzstan to put this legal framework in place? Maybe you can say a little bit about this, about the process and how long it took. Thank you.
As far as I know, it took NSO more than 2 years, 2.5 and 3 years. I mean, before having this legal framework in place, so the NSO has decided to engage as many stakeholders as possible, and it takes some time. So I think it's 2.5 and 3 years almost.
Mm. Federico, is that what you also had in Uruguay, roughly?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Please.
No, I was saying, how long did it take in Uruguay to put the legal framework in place, so the legal basis?
Our law is from 1994, so it's in an old one. So we need to update that law. That law didn't mention it, the administrative register for statistical purposes in the text. So we know that we need to update that law, but it is not a barrier for us, at least, to access or to administrative data, because we have a strong national statistical system, and we use this MLO we've used to build this data sharing collaboratives projects. So, but anyway, we need to update the legal framework.
Thank you. Mitali, I see your hand up. You would like to follow up on this?
Yeah, I actually had a question not directly related to admin data, but if the legal framework also includes data from private sources to Omurbek, because they have in Kyrgyzstan a new legal framework in place.
So the legal framework that we managed to implement has a lot to do with the national statistical system, and the NSO as a key coordinator within the national statistical system should be playing a key role in terms of getting access to the administrative data and using the administrative data. But as far as I remember, so the law also specifies that NSO should also get access to the news or other sources of information. But the key focus here has been made gaining the access to the administrative data and using the administrative data for statistical purposes.
Thanks, Omurbek. I see also another question by Palan Mathavan about those dashboards for the data sources. How important is it to provide such dashboards where actually the data providers can check on the data? Is this something that is really required, or is it nice to have? Federico, I think okay. Because you have yes. experience with that.
This was our initiative. It was not a requirement from our data providers, but they are very happy to have this kind of dashboard, because some of them, especially the local government, they don't have enough resources. Or human resources to build this kind of dashboard or statistics. So they are very happy with this kind of agreement. They provide us with data, and then we provide this kind of statistical or information that they need.
Yeah, so they get something in exchange for providing the data. So I guess this is also part really of building the partnership with the data providers of administrative data. I saw another hand up, but now it disappeared. Maybe the question was already answered. I have, maybe let me ask if there's not another question. Here I see Olinto was asking, but one point is important to be clear: official by non-official, no official statistics. Okay. I think I don't fully understand this. Maybe if you want to come in and explain it yourself. In the meantime, maybe let me ask one more question there, and then I'll give back to Karen also to report maybe on the results of the poll, or to Vibeke. One question would be, if you, I mean, those providers of administrative data, they send you the data, you do your quality checks, maybe you find errors in that data. I know from the country where I was working in the statistical office that it is not possible to report back those errors that you find in the data that you receive. And maybe you can say something about this, whether in your countries it is possible, after you have processed the data and checked for quality and errors, if you are able to report back those errors or not, and if that at all is a good practice to do, or maybe a bad practice. Thank you.
In our case, we provide them a quality report on some variables. we cannot then back a micro data or identify big data with the errors. But in some cases, for instance, some variables on some categories that they made some mistakes in the coding of those categories and something like that. But it is an aggregated quality report.
Yeah. Thank you. Olinto, very quickly, I pass over to you to ask your question, and then probably we need to wrap up. Thank you. Olinto?
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Thanks.
Hi, Alex. No, my question is very simple, because when we talk about the statistical systems, there's a point very important that the statistical system provides official statistics. And you have a large set of statistics. It must be clear in the law. We have this experience in Brazil. And you can provide official statistics by the NSO, or one discussion that's interesting, if you can certify another statistical producers to produce official statistics. That's important, because official statistics represents a country. Then it's very important to be clear what is official and no official when you discuss the law and all the systems. This was a comment and a question also. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. I'm not sure if any of you still wants to comment on that. Maybe I hand over to you, Vibeke, and then you can also wrap up with the results from the poll.
Thank you. No, I think this is relevant in the whole thinking of NSS coordination, or National Statistical System coordination, and data stewardship. Kind of the engagement with the administrative data owners, providing, but with the with the general recommendation that the NSOs has a kind of coordinating role and maybe a quality approval role. I think that is a good point. And then it's a discussion and a prioritization and decision by countries whether the statistics would then still be produced by the line ministries, or whether it's still or whether the data are also shared with the statistics office, so that the statistics office produces the statistics, combining, linking different data sources, etc. To quickly also respond to the feedback mechanism, I think there are very different approaches in different countries. My background is from Norway, and Norway has an approach of providing feedback, but only on information that the administrative data owner will have themselves. So if Statistics Norway has combined and linked different data sources and find errors because of that, they can't provide feedback if the administrative data owners doesn't also have availability of the same data source. But for any errors they find in the register itself, they would provide the feedback. I also saw a comment in the chat on how to reach out to us. Please either use the Yammer group, and I also put in the chat the emails of Karen and myself. For those who don't have access to the chat, I can be reached at my first and last name at un.org. So that is Vibeke.nielsen@un.org. Please reach out to us. We are welcome to join the collaborative. In terms of actual project implementation, that is a funding issue, but we can maybe help contacting different potential partners in the context. On the poll, I think we now have 11 votes, and it seems like 13 votes. Great. So the majority say that all the different elements, that is both coordination and collaboration, data management, and interoperability and linking, are challenging. That's more than half of the participants who've said that. But the coordination and collaboration with data owners does also get a quite high vote. So it seems like that overall is one of the main challenges for people. Please use the Yammer group, the subgroup that we have established, to also ask questions, to engage. That's really what it's for. So we hope that you will think of questions come in and ask them, and we can have a healthy and good discussion around it, and maybe also share relevant materials. And I want to thank everyone, all the speakers, for sharing their experiences and for highlighting some of the work that we've been doing and are still doing in the collaborative. And then also thanks to the organizers for allowing us again to speak here and share the work of the collaborative.
Yes, thanks. And maybe I can invite now all attendees. You can now unmute yourself and maybe join us to give all the speakers a big round of applause. That would be really great. So please unmute yourself and give them some applause. Thanks so much for joining today, and watch out, you will receive an invitation for our next Global Network webinar shortly. And just one final thing, in the chat I have now just put, or I will put the link to our user survey of the Global Network and the Global Network webinar. So if you have 10 minutes to spare with us, you can share with us your view on the Global Network and the Global Network webinars. Thank you. Sorry that we went a little bit over time today, but thanks again and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.